Alright everyone, we have some interesting statistics, link in the description, archived of course. We've got to talk about the youth vote. The youth vote has for a long time been fairly monolithic. It tends to lean fairly left. What we saw in the last election, when Trump crushed Harris completely and won every swing state, and now she's disappeared like Al Gore, and she probably won't be back in politics, by the way. I don't expect her to actually run for the gubernatorial slot in California, although it'd be funny, and she might win that simply because there are so many Democrats in the state. So, hey, Californians, enjoy, have a good time. You might have to deal with Kamala for a long time to come, assuming that Gavin Newsom decides to run for the presidency. You should be begging him to just remain governor at this point because somehow he's better than Harris. Here's one thing, though, that a lot of people are talking about, which is the youth vote. Young males disproportionately lurched way off into MAGA land over the last election. And it was males, specifically. If anything, this was the gender election more than anything else. Now, some liberals have commented on this and saying, well, you know, it's misogyny or whatever. I would point out this did not happen with Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton managed to clean up with the youth vote, generally speaking. She didn't have this problem. It's because of Kamala Harris's acerbic attitude. It's because she very openly insulted other people, and so did members of her team. Of course, Tim Walz, not exactly the greatest running mate, and other considerations. This is why I would say the youth is all right. Don't worry about it. Some people in my older generation, us millennials, have a grudge against Gen Z, it seems. I've never fully understood it. I'm like, look, we were young once. We're not young anymore. Think about how you were when you were young. It's like when I look at the weird DMs with Destiny. There's a reason why I'm not covering that in a separate video. Look, people have said all sorts of weird shit. They've done all sorts of weird shit. We use drugs and everything else under the sun. That's just the way that the youth tends to be. Don't worry too much about them. It's not necessary. They're going to be young for a while, they're going to be crazy, and then they'll get older. And they'll get boring, generally speaking, which is rather unfortunate. When I look at Gen Z, I actually see a generation that I correctly predicted was going to lurch far rightward. But it appears to be largely gender-based. Younger females, they piled in for Kamala Harris, including those that were, you know, a little bit older. But the young male population lurched heavily against her. I think there's a reason for this, and that's the Democrats' own fault. And they could have had many of those votes on their side, probably would have won the election. But they decided to alienate them with their constant harping on gender does not exist, or it exists but it's, you know, it's a rainbow, it's Tumblrism or something. Males are inherently bad, wrong, misogynistic, etc. They alienated a bunch of people. It was literally basket of deplorables on steroids. You literally had the same rhetoric. Well, I wonder why they didn't vote for you. It shows that the youth cohort, as with other cohorts, whether it's racial, ethnic in some nature, immigrant, non-immigrant, male, female, whatever it happens to be, gay or straight, whatever. It does not matter. That id poll has begun to break down. The real kicker is that the main basis for the Democratic Party for several decades now has been identity politics. The idea is that you split people apart into subgroups, you appeal to them, and you try to get 51% of the vote. That's basically the operative strategy. What this shows is that it's no longer working. And this has been a thing now since 2016. It stopped working effectively then. It didn't work in 2020. That election was stolen. It was not a proper election. Joe Biden was never legitimately elected. I don't care what liberals tell me. I'm not stupid. I understand statistics a little bit too much to accept the results of that election. Nonetheless, he takes office. But you failed to replicate that success in the subsequent election. The youth is no longer a monolith of far leftism or anything like that. It's actually going in the other direction. This is something that some people predict. A lot of people thought, well, like the demographics is Destiny crowd. For years and years, they've told me that Texas and Florida inevitably are going to become blue states. What just happened in the last election? People are rejecting that basic premise. They no longer see themselves as male, female, black, white, etc. What they're doing is they're congealing. And that congelation is going in favor of the populist movement, not of the liberal movement. That's because the liberals are old. They're fucking boring. Most of their politicians are in their 80s at this point. Yeah, that really, nothing says youth appeal like a candidate who claims to be young and fresh and she's 60 years old. And instead of accepting the fact, hey, I'm older, I'm no longer, she's certainly not a millennial, she decided to pretend, with Ellen DeGeneres and everyone else, she pretends that she's young and spry and everything else. She's basically a bratty teenager, Brat Summer or something like that. It didn't work very well now, did it? Because you're cringe. You're a pile of nonsense. Yes, the average 18-year-old is going to be taken in by the fact that you're capable of doing a couple of dance moves. That's exactly what they want to see. You're totally hip. It makes no sense. The entire operative strategy of the liberal movement effectively has broken down completely. And it's wonderful to see. What I would like to see, though, beyond this, acknowledge the fact that politicians, generally speaking, are not going to be in the younger generations. They're generally over 50. You've got a handful of outliers like Gabbard, Boebert, Anna Luna, a few Gates. I think he's like in his mid-40s. Buttigieg. You've got some liberal politicians too, but by and large, they're over 60. They're much more wealthy than the average person in the population. And simply saying, hey, I'm black, vote for me. Hey, I'm a woman, vote for me. That no longer works. The liberals need to understand this. I don't see that happening in the conservative movement. They seem to ignore all such things. Much to the chagrin of the id-pollers on the right wing, by the way. That's about all. Peace out.